So our painting has had a little bit of time to dry, about 15-20 minutes. And now I'm going to go back in to kind of get some of this to have more contrast. Contrast is the difference between light areas and dark areas that really make a painting look interesting and make things look a little more 3D. So I'm going to use my paint directly from the tray this time. I'm not mixing any special colors. And I'm going to have just a little bit of water on my brush because my paints are actually still a little bit wet. They didn't dry. They take a while to fully dry. And I'm going just into the red orange. And I'm using that red orange now on some of the parts of the pumpkin that are in shadow when I'm looking at it. So just very carefully going over here and layering in this really dark red orange. Go. And I'm going to wipe off the paint that's on my brush. And now that my brush is almost clean, I'm just going to pull some of what I already painted over. Okay, so there we go. And then again, a little bit of water on my brush. Dip it in, get some of that red orange just a little bit, and I'm going to keep going. So now I'm going to go over to this one. Watercolors are a little bit transparent, so some of the shadows, the blue that was in there before, it's already showing through, which is great because that's what we want. We want to have our shadows showing through. And I do still have in my palette some of our original orange, so I'm going to use a little bit of that. I'm going to let that orange part sit and dry a little bit, and now I want to bring in some shadows into my stem, and I'm going to go right into the violet without even mixing it with anything else, just to get a little bit on my brush, just on the tip, and go in for some violet shadows. You can use that same violet underneath the pumpkin. Use a little bit of white. Now my pumpkin is still really wet, so I don't want to do too much, but I'm just going to go in a little bit where there's the really bright spots on the pumpkin. And I want to mix up a little bit more of that kind of a green color. So I still have some blue in here and I've got some orange. I'm just going to mix them together. And that's going to give me that olive green that I had used for my stem. And then I can go in and add a layer of that. Put a little bit of white on the top. So while my pumpkin is drying, I can add some more. If I feel like this needs to be darker because it's super light, I could certainly go in and take a little bit of that black, maybe mix it in. Some of my other colors. Okay, and then I can go in and I can get this even darker. Okay, still my pumpkin is still drying. I'm actually going to turn my paper around right now because I want to work on the sky or background. And we're going to go from dark to light. So we're going to start building in some color here. And I'm going to use that blue violet. I'm using it straight from the pan. And right here I'm going to start with that dark, fully saturated color. And now I'm going to take water on my brush and just sort of pull some of that. Okay, so that can dry a little bit. I'll turn it back around so it's not upside down. Take a look at it. Here we go. And just let that continue to dry. You can see it's getting really curled up. I feel my pumpkin feels pretty good right now. So I'm going to take some of that violet on my brush. And I am going to put that into my paint palette just because I want to get rid of some of that pigment by adding a little bit of water to it. And I'm going to tie that into these shadows underneath. So there is our finished watercolor pumpkin. Again, this is using the Crayola watercolors. So these are student watercolors, and using a watercolor crayon. Again, student watercolor crayon. So now we would let this totally dry. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my tape off now just so you can see what it looks like with the nice clean border, but you should really normally wait until your painting has totally dried first. But I want you to be able to see what it's like when you take that tape off. It's so satisfying. You get a nice clean border. There you go. I hope you had fun painting a pumpkin, and make sure to practice. The more you practice, the better you get.